My name is Phil Schuman. I'm the Director of Financial Literacy for all of Indiana University. I'm doing a presentation today on your life after graduation. So basically what I want you guys to get out of the program today is just kind of open your mind about what kind of salary you can expect once you graduate, and what kind of lifestyle that's going to mean, and things you can do right now in terms of planning, so you know what to expect, and you'll be able to live a life that's comfortable with what your lifestyle should be. So the first thing I want to show you is a couple graphs here, and I apologize that they're a little blurry. But on the left is what real life should be. And what this graph is showing you is before you come into college, your lifestyle, what you're accustomed to, is probably going to be better, or it should be better, than what it is in college. And then once you get to college, you're going to have this low, bare bottom lifestyle where you might have to give up air conditioning, you might have a dishwasher, something like that. You're just going to be making sacrifices, and you're pretty much going to be living as poorly, as you should at this point. And then once you graduate, you're going to start going, increasing your job prospects, getting better jobs, getting higher salaries, and your ultimate goal is to work yourself up to get past the point you were once you came to college. On the right is what life shouldn't be like. You shouldn't be coming to college and trying to maintain that exact same lifestyle that you had prior to coming to school, and then working your way up afterwards. Because what's going to happen there is you're going to end up spending a lot more money over your lifetime, because whatever you become accustomed to is what your baseline is. So if you're becoming accustomed to having the nicest things on earth while you're in college, once you graduate, chances are you're probably not going to be able to maintain a lifestyle or have a lifestyle that's going to include those things, and you might get disappointed in that. So what this is all about is just tempering expectations, and I want that to be kept in your mind as you're going through this, because what you'll realize is things like your apartment when you graduate is not going to be something that's like on the left. That's an apartment that you're going to work your way up to. On the right is much more of an apartment that you probably find whenever you graduate, and that's probably what you're going to move into. And one of the reasons why I'm showing you these slides is just because this is what my lifestyle was like when I graduated, and this is kind of what I had to adapt myself to too. So, looking on the right again, that's kind of the apartment you should expect, and if you can find something a little bit better in your price range, great. If not, don't worry, you're going to work yourself up later on. The same thing goes with your workplace. I mean, we all would love to work at Google, which is on the left here. They've got slides and poles and tents and just an amazing environment that anybody would be lucky enough to work in. But chances are, unfortunately, when you graduate, you're probably going to have some sort of job that is like a cubicle. Again, that's what I had when I first graduated. But the important thing to remember is that with time, with effort, and with experience, you'll start working your way up, and you'll get to move into, maybe not necessarily Google, but you'll have your own office. You'll have your own things. You'll have a better lifestyle, the lifestyle that you really want. So what this presentation is all about is we want to get you where you want to be by helping you be realistic with your money and situation. Again, we're not saying that you're never going to have the things that you want. We're just saying that it's important to remember that you're going to start at the bottom and you're going to work yourself up. Because it is possible to get the job where you want to get when you graduate, but it might not pay what you hope it will. That's the hard thing to remember, is that, and this was true for me when I graduated as well, was that when I graduated, I expected to have everything that I always wanted. Not necessarily the case. Chances are you will have to start that bare bottom job. I'll talk about my salary, about those kinds of things that I had when I graduated. Just kind of show you that, it takes time, it takes effort to work yourself up. Everything that you do is just a step in the direction of your ultimate goals. And that's the thing to keep in mind, is that even when things look very disparaging, when things look kind of hopeless, and I apologize for all the horrible words that I'm using here and the depressing tone, everything is working towards the ultimate goal. Whatever you're setting out to do, that's what you're trying to accomplish right now. So, one of the things that I think is important is for you to figure out what your take-home pay will be every month when you graduate. So what I want to do before I even go into this is I want to talk to you a little bit about my situation when I graduated. So when I graduated, I went to DePaul University. If you don't know where that is, it's about an hour west of Indianapolis. Very small school, 2,400 students. I was a psychology major. I was on the dean's list 4 times. I was an RA for 3 years. And I graduated for $15,000 in student loan debt. Now, I'm not putting up there that I was on the dean's list 4 times or I was an RA for 3 years to try and brag. I'm trying to just get you an idea that you could be doing a lot of things that are correct in college, and it still won't necessarily get you to where you think you're going to be. Because when I graduated, I had all these things on my list. I'm thinking I'm going to make $45,000. I'm going to have a nice job, nice office in the city, just everything that I could possibly want. And so one of the things I did know was that I had 3 goals. Not very, not very high achieving goals or anything like that, but just things that I knew exactly what I wanted to do when I graduated. The first was I wanted to move to Chicago. I've always loved Chicago. I grew up in Bloomington and just always was kind of enamored with the big city. So I just felt like moving to Chicago was the thing I always wanted to do. I knew I wanted to work in advertising too. That was just another big goal of mine. I always loved the creative aspect of advertising. I kind of liked representing brands. I kind of liked the psychology behind it. So I thought working in advertising was exactly what I wanted to do. And the third thing, and kind of the reason why I wanted to move to Chicago really, was because I wanted to live near Wrigley Field and be able to go to Cubs games whenever I wanted. The great thing about all of this was that every goal was accomplished. The only problem was I didn't actually think about whether or not I could afford it. And that was my big problem. Like, you can accomplish any of the goals that you have, but if you're doing it at the cost of just using up all your funds to do it, you're not going to be able to maintain it for very long, and you're going to dig yourself into a deeper hole. So what I want you to do for a couple minutes here is just think about your short-term goals or your long-term goals and kind of just jot them down for a minute. So take a couple minutes to do that. Think about what your academic goals are. Think about what your career goals are. Think about what your social goals are. Just take a couple minutes, think about that, and then we'll just talk about that real briefly here in a second. Alright, so you want to share by any chance? You don't have to if you don't want out here. I just want to know, do you have any?
I'll share.
Alright.
Short term, I want to get through my internship. More long term is become a licensed marriage and family therapist working in Indianapolis for a private practice or a nonprofit until I can open my own counseling center.
Excellent. So, obviously, you've got your goals lined up. Have you thought about what the financial ramifications are for it?
Yes.
Okay. Based on your laughter, I'd say it's a little daunting. Is that what we're getting at? Excellent. That's what it's going to be. It's going to be, you have to figure out, if you can figure out what your goals are, and then kind of realize there is a financial ramification behind it, you can start planning and figuring out what it's going to take in order to get there. And I think that's the most important thing. And then, going back to what we're trying to accomplish here is by looking at what you can reasonably expect in the world of finances. You can kind of outline how long it's going to take and what exactly you can do to either speed up the process or just know how long it's actually going to take to get there. So, kind of what I want to show you behind my job, I was working, I did get to be in advertising here, and so my salary, based on all the data that I entered in, now is projected to be $31,300. I will tell you, back in 2006 when I got my job, the salary was actually $28,400. But in Chicago, $28,400 or now $31,300 is not going to carry you very far, which is an absolute huge problem. To go along with that, I did say that I wanted to work or live near Wrigley Field. So you can see Wrigley Field down here in the bottom left corner. My apartment is this little highlighted thing up in the top right corner, kind of. I'll zoom in on it here. You can kind of see, this was a picture of my kitchen. My apartment was 1 bedroom, 600 square feet, no dishwasher, no laundry, no air conditioning, $1,125. I got that apartment without any problem, and the people that I rented from said, oh yeah, sure, you can afford it, that isn't going to be a problem at all. So that was, all of this was fine to me, because really, despite the fact that I was sweaty, despite the fact that I didn't have clean dishes, and despite the fact that I didn't have clean clothes, I was living in the area that I wanted to live in, and to me, that was kind of all that mattered. The only problem, and I'll show you my thought process here, was $31,300, at least now. Again, I made $28,400 then, but I'm kind of actualizing everything to now. So I make $31,300 a year. That means I make $2,608.33 a month. So theoretically, I could easily afford that at $1,125 a month, because that would still mean that I would have approximately $1,400 a month to spend on everything else that I needed. Anybody want to take a guess as to what my problem was here, or where the fallacy was in my thought process? So the problem was, what's that?
I was going to say taxes.
Taxes, absolutely. So I forgot about income taxes, Social Security, Medicare, health insurance, other insurance, retirement account, and I actually didn't even put it up here, but student loans as well. So the big problem that I had was that I was thinking just in gross, not in net, and I'll explain that here in just a few minutes. So what we look at here, and this is something you're going to do here in a few minutes, is you're going to take a look and see what your salary is and how much money that's actually going to translate to when all the taxes and things like that are taken out. So I'll just walk you line by line here. My filing status was I was single. I had an annual salary of, again, this is actualized to now, $31,300, which with a tax rate is 15%. I was in the state of Illinois, which is a 5% tax rate. I probably paid around $1,200 a year towards my health care, another $240 a year towards my dental, and then 5% retirement contribution. So when you add all of those things up and you look down here at the bottom, you'll see that the number is, where this net pay is, $1,687.05. That's how much money that I made after taxes. So again, when we go back a few slides and see what the number was, I made $2,608.33 a month. And now, after net, or with net pay here, I make $1,687.05. So almost $1,000 of my paycheck was gone as a result. Now, the other thing to remember is that I have student loans. And so this calculator will also take into account how much you have in student loans when you enter in the numbers. So my student loan minimum payment per month was $149.39, meaning that out of that $2,600 that we originally had, I'm now down to $1,537.65. And so again, my big point here is that we think and spend in gross, but we get paid in net. Now, what that means here is that I get paid in gross $31,300 a year. And so my thought process again was that, $31,300 divided by 12, that's how much money I get per month. But the problem is that apartment that I bought is $1,125, and I'm taking into $1,125 net compared to $31,300 gross, which does not work. I have to think in net, which means that I'm only making $1,537.65 net at $1,125 apartment. So instead of having that initial $1,400 that I was originally talking about, I have $400 to spend, which is kind of a problem. So this leads into budgeting. So this is something that we use kind of whenever we do presentations, the Pete the Planner Ideal Budget. If you don't know Pete, he's a financial personality here in Indianapolis, and actually he does a podcast with us called How Not to Move Back In With Your Parents. And I'll talk about that here in a little bit too. But this is just kind of a general overview of what an ideal budget should be. The one thing I will say is that everybody's budget's different, so your priorities and the numbers that you have will be a little bit different as well. You know, for some people, if you live on campus, transportation might not be nearly as high as 15%, so you might just customize it to whatever you need, but I think this is a good place to start. But I do agree with this, housing should be no more than 25%. Housing at 25% is perfect, especially when you factor in the fact that utilities are a separate line item. So really, housing and utilities should cost you about 35%. So, and again, just remember that these are part of your net pay, not your gross pay. So this is 25%. For me, it'd be 25% of that $1,500, not 25% of that $2,600 for housing. So I'm going to show you two graphs here. This is what my budget should have been. And the big thing to note already is that $384.41 was supposed to go towards housing. I spent $1,125 a month on housing. I spent $750 more than I should have on housing. Already you can tell that I dug myself into a pretty deep hole and needed to find a way out. So, and if you look at this, if you add it all up, and I'm not going to do that because I don't remember what the grand total was here, but if you add it all up, you'll see that this number is higher than what my net pay was, meaning that my net income every month was going down. And for somebody that has student loan debt, for somebody that has no savings, for somebody that has a little credit, this is not a good thing to be doing. So again, had I been paying attention, I probably would have noticed this, fixed it more quickly than I did. Fortunately, I did notice it eventually and was able to clear it up. Here's what I spent. So $1,135, $310 was going towards grocery and dining. And you look, I was supposed to spend $230. This is again, I can't stress how big of a problem this was, especially when you look at these two graphs side by side. There were a couple instances where I did spend the amount of money that I was supposed to, but if you look at the percentages down at the bottom, you see where the big problems were. So again, housing, I was supposed to spend 25%, I spent 74%. Groceries and dining, I was supposed to spend 12, I spent 20. You go down the line here, and you'll also notice that I did cut out some things that weren't as important to me. Apparently, I was not that concerned with medical because I paid 1% instead of 5%. But you'll notice that I did customize the budget for myself here. But you'll see that there's a huge problem with what I was trying to do, and I needed to figure out a way to get out of this. So, again, the big point here is that a lack of preparation, a lack of control can dig you into a deep hole. So, real quickly, anybody had any ideas on ways to cut costs? There's one big one that when I did this presentation once before, somebody came out and said, and it's the absolute truth. There's a good way to remember it. Any ideas? Roommate, absolutely. So what the person said when I came to this presentation was that having one roommate was like having a 50% off coupon. Having two roommates, it's like having a 66% coupon. It just goes on and on like that. And that's the big thing. If you have a roommate, then you'll be able to cut your costs immediately. And what ended up happening with me was that I had a fiance at the time. She ended up moving to Chicago, and fortunately, she was okay with splitting the costs. And that's actually one of the big ways I got myself out of my little jam here, was that I had somebody else that was able to pay half the rent along with myself. Even if you have two people paying for groceries or two people that are eating your groceries, it still is more economical than just paying for groceries yourself, especially when you split them. And the other big thing that we worked on was figuring out what our needs were and what our wants were. And one of the big things we ended up cutting, and I never thought I'd do this in a million years, was cutting back cable. And this was even before Hulu and Netflix, which now I think makes things a lot easier. Just in terms of, you can pay $15 a month, get what I consider to be everything that you could possibly want, and you're fine. There are a lot of other things you can do too to save money on there, but that's just one way that we were able to cut back too. I also cut back on the amount of driving that I did. Since I was in Chicago, I went over to public transportation, which was a huge savings. So instead of spending probably $150 to $200 a month in gas, I cut it down to $50 to $75 a month. It's just those kinds of things of figuring out what you actually need, what you actually want, that can really help you save money. So the other big thing to remember too is, and this goes back to my student loan points, is this is something that we hammer out to to all students that we do presentations for. If you have existing debt, and I'm not really talking about down the road with mortgages and things like that, because you know you have to pay that, that's part of your living expenses. But if you have this extra debt in there, such as credit card debt, such as student loan debt, that is something that you should pay off. You should make sure you're paying that off every month. And again, the way it does it in my calculator here, if you have student loans, just act like it doesn't exist, or doesn't act like that money doesn't exist in your paycheck. So if you make $1,500 a month, you have a $150 student loan payment, act as though you only make $1,350 a month. And if you do like auto payment online, which is what I did with student loans, it makes it even easier just because you never see that money to begin with. Which is the right way to do it, because you want to end up building your credit, which paying your student loans on time is a way to do it. And you also want to get rid of that debt, and you don't want to have to worry about it once you get it paid off. So if you can start paying it off and just remember that, I don't need to worry about this money, then you'll be in good shape. And again, the same goes with credit card debt as well, and any other loans you might have too. So what I want you guys to do now is I want you to kind of go through the steps that I went through here. So the first thing I want you to do is I want you to figure out your salary. And so what you can see here on the calculator under the annual salary, it's highlighted in blue. There is a hyperlink there to a NACE web calculator. That calculator will take you in. You'll enter in some data about what your degree is, what university you attend, what your GPA is, and what your intended career is. And you can kind of get an idea as to how much money you can expect to make. The one thing I will say, and one of the big fallacies that I made and a lot of other students still make, is that when they look at that, they always look at the average salary of what that profession makes. Strongly encourage you, for your benefit, to not look at that and to look at what the 10th percentile is. It's a big difference. It's not very much fun to look at, but it's important to do, because if you're setting yourself up to make only, say, $35,000 a year when the average is $45,000, maybe you'll find a job that pays you more than $35,000 and you'll be happy. But B, if you're only going to make $35,000 and that's what you expect, you'll be in much better shape than if you think you're going to make a lot more than you actually end up making. So do that. And then you'll walk through this, you'll fill out all of this and come down with your money to budget number at the end. And this will include going through this the student loan calculator that's also on the sheet. And all you have to do here is just enter in the amount of loans you have, what your interest rates are as well, and it'll calculate what your minimum payments are. And then this number will automatically carry over into the calculator, and it'll deduct it from what your net pay is. So you can actually see what your net pay or what your money to budget will be. So you'll take that, you'll look at how much money, you'll look at the graphs that are off to the side, which will just kind of show you, this is how much money you should spend in each category based on this. And you can kind of get an idea what you think you need to make or what you need to do in order to be able to live that kind of a lifestyle. The other thing that we put on here that I think is really important is to look at the cost of living index. Cost of living index shows you how much more expensive it is to live in another city compared to it is where you live right now. So if you're planning on moving to Chicago like I did, if you look at the calculator and you compare it to Indianapolis, you'll see that I think it's about 26% more expensive to live in Chicago than it is here. So if you want that, if you have a one-bedroom apartment here that's costing you, say, about $500 a month, and you want that exact same style apartment once you move to Chicago, you're going to have to up that by 26%, which means you'll probably have to pay about $625 a month in order to get that same kind of apartment. So that's something to think about too when you build your budget and trying to figure out whether or not you can actually afford to live somewhere and what you need to do in order to live somewhere when it comes to affording it. So the other thing that will happen is on the second tab at the bottom of the sheet, it will also translate those numbers into a budget for you here. And you should start programming the numbers in and just kind of see where everything falls and see how much money you're actually going to spend on each category, and just see where you can sacrifice or where things might be in terms of what your priorities are. Again, all you're trying to do here is put all these numbers in to help you accomplish your goals in the end. And the big number to look at is down at the bottom with savings. One of the big things I didn't point out earlier is that in my budget, one of the categories I had to forgo was savings, which is kind of a problem. If you're trying to build a lifestyle, if you're trying to have, if one of your goals, like mine was to have a family someday, not having savings is going to be a huge problem because you're not going to be able to afford a place to live. You're not going to be able to afford, a house if you ever want that, a car, anything along those lines. So just keep that in mind and see what you can do in order to build that savings number up. Because again, you're not going to have everything that you want once you graduate. And so the sooner you kind of recognize that, I think the easier it'll be to build that savings number up and get to the point where you have the things you want once you graduate. So take a few minutes, do this, and then we'll come talk about it afterwards. so now you've got the opportunity to kind of enter in your numbers, kind of see what you can expect once you graduate. So, are there any thoughts, any expectations, or anything you've noticed that wasn't what you thought it would be, or you have any questions?
What if I couldn't find my exact occupation title?
If you can't find your exact occupation title, you have to go with just the nearest thing that's there. The one downside to that website is that it's not specific in a lot of professions, so we've seen a lot of ones that don't actually exist on their list. But I think you can find something that's pretty comparable on there. And even if you find something that might be a level above what you might be trying to go for, I think you can reasonably figure out how much less money you could expect to make based on that. But I think the important thing is find something as close to what you're trying to do as you can, and then work from there. Anything else? Okay. Well, the one thing I will say, I'm going to do a little plug for my program here. My office does run the IU Money Smarts program, which is moneysmarts.iu.edu, which is the financial literacy website for all of IU and IUPUI. We have a Facebook account, IU Money Smarts, a Twitter account, which is also IU Money Smarts. We also have launched a podcast called How Not to Move Back In With Your Parents. Right now, I think we have 15 episodes up on the web. You can check it out on iTunes, you can check it out on our website, and you can check it on the IU mobile app as well. And if you have any questions, if you have any thoughts, if there's anything you'd like to see from the Office of Financial Literacy, please contact us at moneysmart@iu.edu. And that's it. Thank you very much.